Welcome, brave souls, to BitBlitz Horror. I'm your host, and tonight, we're diving deep into the shadows of the forest, where the line between gift and curse blurs like mist among the trees. Prepare yourselves for Whispers in the Wild, The Chosen One's Burden, a tale that will make you think twice about those innocent animal sounds outside your window. Have you ever wished you could talk to animals? After this story, you might be grateful for the silence. So dim the lights, check under your bed, and make sure your pets are safely in another room. Because once we start, there's no turning back. Are you ready? Then let's begin. I never thought my ability to understand animals would lead me down such a dark and terrifying path. It started innocently enough, a gift I'd had since childhood that I'd kept secret from everyone. The chirping of birds, the barking of dogs, the meowing of cats, all of it was as clear to me as human speech. For years I delighted in this unique talent, eavesdropping on the secret world of creatures around me. But everything changed that fateful night in the woods behind my house. I had always loved taking late-night walks to clear my head, listening to the symphony of nocturnal animals as I strolled beneath the trees. The warm summer air caressed my skin as I ventured deeper into the forest than usual, drawn by an unfamiliar sound echoing through the darkness. As I approached, I realized it was the voice of a fox, but something was off. Its words were disjointed, frantic. "The circle must complete the circle," it muttered, pacing back and forth. "Blood of the innocent, flesh of the pure. The old ones demand sacrifice." A chill ran down my spine. I'd never heard an animal speak like this before. I crouched behind a bush, watching as the fox's eyes glowed an unnatural red in the moonlight. Suddenly, it snapped its head in my direction, lips curling back in a snarl. "I smell you, human," it growled. "You hear us, don't you? You understand our words." I stumbled backward, heart pounding. How could it know? "Run," the fox hissed. "Run before they find you. But know this, they will come for you now. The gift you possess, it marks you. You cannot escape what's coming." I bolted, crashing through the underbrush as the fox's manic laughter echoed behind me. When I finally reached home, I slammed and locked the door, gasping for breath. What had I just witnessed? What did the fox mean? Sleep eluded me that night as I tossed and turned, the fox's words replaying in my mind. As dawn broke, I convinced myself it had all been a vivid nightmare. I was exhausted, stressed from work. Surely my imagination had run wild. But as I stumbled to the kitchen for coffee, a chorus of birdsong drifted through the open window. I froze, mug halfway to my lips, as I processed their words. "The chosen one has been marked," they chirped excitedly. "The ritual can begin." "Yes, yes," another bird chimed in. "The old ones will rise again." I slammed the window shut, hands shaking. This was real. This was happening. Over the next few days, I became a prisoner in my own home. Every time I ventured outside, the animals watched me. Squirrels, rabbits, even insects, all whispering about the chosen one, and some impending ritual. I couldn't escape their voices, couldn't block out their sinister chatter. My phone rang, startling me from my paranoid thoughts. It was my best friend, Emma. "Hey, where have you been?" she asked. "I've been trying to reach you for days." I hesitated, unsure how to explain. I haven't been feeling well," I lied. "Well, you picked a hell of a time to go off the grid," Emma said. "Have you seen the news? There's been a string of bizarre animal attacks all over town. People are saying it's like the animals have gone crazy." My blood ran cold. "What kind of attacks?" "Weird stuff. A flock of birds dive-bombed a guy walking his dog. A bunch of squirrels swarmed a kid in the park. And get this, they found a jogger in the woods, torn to shreds. The police are saying it must have been a bear, but I don't know. Something feels off about all this." I swallowed hard. my mouth suddenly dry. Emma, I need to tell you something. Can you come over? There was a pause on the other end of the line. Sure, I can be there in 20 minutes. Is everything okay? No, I whispered. I don't think it is. After I hung up, I paced nervously, rehearsing how to explain the impossible to my friend. But as I glanced out the window, my heart nearly stopped. Hundreds of animals had gathered on my lawn, birds perched in trees, squirrels and rabbits on the grass, even a few deer at the edge of the woods. All of them staring at my house. Waiting, a car pulled into my driveway, and I saw Emma step out. The sea of creatures parted to let her through, and I wanted to scream at her to run. But I was frozen in place, watching in horror as she approached my front door. The doorbell rang, and I forced myself to answer it. Emma's smile faded as she took in my disheveled appearance. Jesus, you look awful, she said, stepping inside. What's going on? I opened my mouth to speak, but a cacophony of animal voices drowned out my words. The sacrifice has arrived. The circle will be complete. Blood of the innocent, flesh of the pure. Emma's eyes widened as she saw the terror on my face. What is it? What's wrong? I grabbed her arm, pulling her away from the windows. Emma, we need to leave. Now. I'll explain everything, but we have to get out of here. Leave? What are you talking about? She yanked her arm free. You're scaring me. Just tell me what's going on. Before I could respond, a deafening crash echoed through the house as every window shattered simultaneously. A tornado of feathers, fur, and scales poured in from all sides. Emma screamed as birds dive-bombed her head, claws raking her scalp. I swatted them away, only to cry out in pain as teeth sank into my ankle. I looked down to see a rabbit, its eyes glowing that same unnatural red, gnawing at my flesh. Run! I yelled, kicking the creature away. I grabbed Emma's hand and pulled her towards the back door. We burst out into the yard, but the onslaught didn't stop. Squirrels leaped from trees, latching onto our clothes and skin. Deer charged at us, antlers lowered like battering rams. What the fuck is happening? Emma sobbed as we ran, swatting and kicking at the relentless swarm of animals. The woods, I gasped. We need to get to the woods. There's a cave we can hide there. We sprinted towards the tree-line, the army of possessed creatures hot on our heels. Branches whipped at our faces as we crashed through the underbrush. I could hear Emma's labored breathing behind me, punctuated by sobs of terror and pain. Finally, I spotted the cave entrance ahead. There! I pointed. We're almost dash. A blood-curdling scream cut me off. I spun around to see Emma on the ground, a mass of animals piling on top of her. No! I lunged forward, trying to pull them off. But there were too many. Teeth and claws tore into her flesh as she thrashed and screamed. Help me! She wailed, reaching out a bloodied hand. I wanted to save her. God, I wanted to. But as I met her terrified gaze, I saw a fox emerge from the woods behind her. Its eyes locked with mine, and I heard its voice in my head. Run, chosen one. Your time has not yet come. With a sob of anguish, I turned and fled into the cave. Emma's screams echoed behind me, growing fainter as I plunged deeper into the darkness. I don't know how long I ran, stumbling blindly through twisting tunnels. Eventually, I collapsed against a damp rock wall, gasping for breath. The only sound was the drip of water and my own ragged breathing. As my eyes adjusted to the gloom, I realized I wasn't alone. Bats hung from the ceiling, their beady eyes fixed on me. Rats scurried along the floor, circling my feet. The chosen one seeks refuge, they chittered. But there is no escape. The ritual must be completed. I clapped my hands over my ears, but it did nothing to block out their voices. Leave me alone! I screamed. What do you want from me? A new voice answered, deep, resonant, and utterly inhuman. We want what has always been ours. I spun around to see a massive shape emerging from the shadows. It was a bear, but unlike any I'd ever seen. Its fur was matted and rotting, hanging off its skeletal frame in clumps. Empty eye sockets glowed with an eldritch green light. What are you? I whispered. The bear's jaw opened unnaturally wide as it spoke. We are the Old Ones, the true masters of this world. And you, little human, are the key to our return. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to put as much distance between myself and the monstrous creature as possible. I don't understand. Why me? Your gift is no accident, the bear growled. It was bestowed upon you for this very purpose. You are the bridge between worlds, the conduit through which we will reclaim what is rightfully ours. My mind reeled, trying to process the impossible. But the animals? Why are they helping you? A sound like rotting leaves rustling emerged from the bear's throat. A laugh. They are our eyes and ears in your world. Our loyal servants. And now, they will be the instruments of our resurrection. The bats dropped from the ceiling, swarming around me. The rats surged forward, tiny claws scratching at my legs. I swatted them away, but for every one I knocked back, 2 more took its place. Stop! I cried. Please, I don't want this. Your wants are irrelevant. The bear snarled. The ritual has begun. Your friend's blood has opened the way. Now we need only your flesh to complete the circle. I looked around desperately for an escape route, but I was surrounded. The bear lumbered closer, its rancid breath washing over me. Do not resist, it growled. Embrace your destiny. Become one with us, and you will know power beyond your wildest dreams. For a moment, I was tempted. The promise of that power thrummed through my veins, a siren song of dark potential. But then I thought of Emma, torn apart because of me. Of all the innocent people who would suffer if these old ones returned. No, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. I won't help you, the bear roared, a sound that shook the very foundations of the cave. Fool! You have no choice. It lunged forward, decaying jaws snapping at my face. I ducked and rolled, feeling its teeth graze my shoulder. Pain exploded through my arm, but adrenaline kept me moving. I sprinted deeper into the cave, the bear's enraged bellows echoing behind me. The swarm of smaller animals gave chase, nipping at my heels. The tunnel narrowed, and I had to crouch to keep going. I could hear the bear crashing against the walls, trying to force its massive bulk through the tight space. Suddenly, the ground beneath my feet disappeared. I plummeted into darkness, tumbling down a steep incline. Rocks tore at my skin as I rolled, unable to stop my descent. I landed hard on a cold, wet surface, the breath knocked from my lungs. As I gasped for air, I realized the sounds of pursuit had faded. I was alone in the pitch black. Fumbling in my pocket, I found my phone. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. I turned on the flashlight, illuminating my surroundings. I was in a vast underground chamber, the ceiling lost in darkness high above. The walls were covered in strange, twisting symbols that seemed to writhe and move in the beam of my light. In the center of the chamber stood a stone altar, ancient and weathered. Dark stains marred its surface. Old blood, I realized with a shudder. As I approached, I saw something gleaming on top of the altar. It was a knife, its blade made of a black metal that seemed to absorb the light from my phone. I picked it up, feeling its weight in my hand. The handle was warm to the touch, almost alive. A whisper echoed through the chamber, so quiet I wasn't sure if I'd actually heard it or if it was in my head. Choose. I looked at the knife, then at the symbols on the wall. Somehow, I knew what they meant. This was a place of power, a nexus point between worlds. And I stood at its heart, holding the key to it all. The bear's words came back to me. I was the bridge, the conduit. But that didn't mean I had to be a passive vessel for their evil. I raised the knife, its edge glinting in the pale light of my phone. I had a choice to make. And as the whispers grew louder around me, I knew what I had to do. With a deep breath, I plunged the knife into my own chest. Pain exploded through me, but it was quickly replaced by a rush of power unlike anything I'd ever felt. The symbols on the walls blazed to life, bathing the chamber in eerie light. I could feel the old ones clawing at the veil between worlds, desperate to break through. But I stood firm, using my gift, my curse, to hold them back. "No," I growled through gritted teeth. "You will not pass. This world is not yours to take." The chamber shook as if in the throes of an earthquake. Rocks tumbled from the ceiling, splashing into unseen pools of water. The knife in my chest burned white-hot, but I refused to let go. I don't know how long I stood there, locked in that cosmic tug-of-war. It could have been minutes or millennia. But finally, slowly, I felt the presence of the old ones begin to recede. With a final, earth-shattering roar, the connection snapped. The symbols on the walls faded, plunging the chamber back into darkness. I collapsed to my knees, the knife clattering to the ground beside me. Blood soaked my shirt, but the wound in my chest was already closing, knitting itself back together before my eyes. As my strength returned, I became aware of a new sound echoing through the chamber. Voices, animal voices, but different from before. No longer filled with malice and hunger, but confusion and fear. "What happened?" A small voice chirped. "A sparrow," I thought. "The darkness, it's gone." Another voice growled. "A wolf, maybe?" I stood on shaky legs, retrieving my phone. In its light, I saw dozens of animals gathered at the entrance to the chamber. They looked at me with clear, normal eyes, no trace of the possessed red glow. "It's over," I said, my voice hoarse. "You're free." A fox, the same one from that first night in the woods, stepped forward. "We remember what we did," it said softly. "The people we hurt. Your friend." I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. "It wasn't your fault. You were being controlled." "What now?" a deer asked, its large eyes full of uncertainty. I looked at the knife on the ground, then back at the assembled animals. "Now we make sure this never happens again. We protect this world together." As I spoke the words, I felt a shift within myself. The power I had gained from the ritual settled into my bones, no longer foreign but a part of me. I understood now why I had been given my gift. Not to serve as a conduit for evil, but as a guardian against it. I picked up the knife, feeling its weight, a reminder of the choice I had made and the responsibility I now bore. "Come on," I said to the animals. "Let's go home." As we made our way out of the cave and into the early morning light, I knew my life would never be the same. The world was full of darkness and ancient evils I had never imagined. But it was also full of allies I never knew I had. I may not have asked for this power or this duty, but as I looked at the animals around me, no longer enemies, but fellow protectors, I knew I would bear it gladly. For Emma. For all those who couldn't protect themselves. And for a world that would never know how close it had come to ending. The sun rose over the trees, marking the dawn of a new day and the beginning of my new purpose.